So joined right now by Matt Vincenzi, senior writer for Live Golf. Matt, appreciate your time tonight.
Yeah, happy to be here. Happy to talk some golf.
So let's get to it. So back in May of this year, you made the decision to join Live Golf after writing for Sports Illustrated. A couple other outlets had this opportunity come about, and any hesitation initially to make the jump to Live?
Um, yeah, I mean, of course, when you make that big of a decision, especially considering with Liv the travel, and that was obviously the biggest thing with me. I have a young family at home, so having to, go to every single event. We're in 9 different countries next year, which is a lot of time away from home. Not to mention the four majors, the Ryder Cup, promotions event. It's almost half the year away from home when I have two little kids. So that was the biggest thing for me. Eventually, I thought it was a risk worth taking because I love the game, obviously, and I love covering it and being able to get that experience, regardless of how it ends up, being able to travel with a tour and be around the players and grow those relationships and make those connections seemed to me like it was too big of an opportunity to pass up.
So how old are the kids?
Just turned 6 and turning 4 next week.
Oh wow, so you're in like the thick of it. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
See,
and my
mine
wife's
are
really into it.
mine are in my 2020s, so I'm kind of past it. You know what I mean? But I can
Yeah.
certainly commiserate with that. So before you even join Live, what were your thoughts about the league initially when it started in 2022?
So I've always been relatively, I think fair to Live for the most part. It's not, I haven't always endlessly blindly praised it. And, funny enough, I'm sure we'll get to it, but from the beginning, I always hoped and publicly said that I thought they should go to 72 holes. So, there were things with the format I didn't love at first. But I thought it just deserved a chance, especially when I saw when Live first came about and we saw how much negative reaction we got from most of the golf media as well as golf fans. It almost seemed coordinated. And I thought it wasn't given a fair shake. And I wanted to be the one to give it a fair shake and evaluate it and give analysis based on what I actually saw instead of what everyone else said. And it kind of seemed like it was a parrot mentality where one person said something, then those talking points got repeated and they're still repeated to this day. So I just wanted to, be open about it. I still loved the PGA Tour at that time. I still do like the PGA Tour. So I follow all golf, but so I've always had an open mind to it, I would say.
Cool. Well, you stole my thunder a little bit there about the 72 holes. This past week, Live huge week as far as in the media. One of the major decisions they made was to switch from to playing 4 rounds 72 holes instead of 3 rounds 54 holes. What do you think about the switch and the impact it's going to have for Live moving forward?
I love the switch. I know Tyrrell Hatton said recently that he thought all the players didn't like it. I don't think it was the three that he claimed. It seems like it was pretty popular amongst the players from what I gathered. And there also was the player competition committee, which was made up of 4, 5, 6 players, whatever it is, and they had to approve it for it to work. So I think overall it's gonna be a good thing for the players. We all know starting 2 years ago, John Rahm has been saying that he thinks Liv should go to 72 holes. And if players like Rahm, Bryson think that that's going to make them more prepared to play in the majors and win majors, then ultimately that's what's best for Liv. So I think some fans, have gotten a little upset about the change because they like the 54 holes. But I think whatever is best for Liv is what's best for your best players. So if they want it, and other than that, I still think it's a great idea. Extra day of golf. I think, you know, 18 holes is a really random amount of golf. 36 holes is a slightly less, 54 slightly less. The longer you play the tournament, the more likely the cream is to rise to the top. And I can see why the middling to lower tier players in the league might not love that. But the best players should love it because the less randomness involved, the less volatility, the better chance the better players have of winning. If they were playing 72 holes for the past 2 years, Ron might have, at least 10 wins by now.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Initially I understood why they went to 54. It made sense, marketing something new and fresh. But over the past year, them trying to appease the official world golf rankings, I've been a big proponent of as well. It's like that's what they want. Just go to 72. It's not like these guys don't play 72, in the DP Tour or majors, whatever. And also, really, I mean, your average PGA Tour Thursday. I mean, who the hell's watching? I mean, Thursday at the Masters, yeah, I'm watching. Thursday at the Open, of course, but whatever the Valspar and even the Waste Management Open, it's not a big a deal. But if it makes sense to the OWGR, why not, right?
And even if so, Liv has said that this has nothing to do with the OWGR. But with that being said, when Liv's application to the OWGR was initially rejected, the things cited as the problems were mostly involved with the field having changing from week to week and not having enough, open for players to qualify for it. That was the biggest problem because you see, look all over the world, and you'll see a bunch of tours that have 54 holes receiving world ranking points. Now, I think if you're going down the path where you want world ranking points, and I think Scott O'Neill obviously does, if you're gonna go down that road, to your point, 54 holes, you're going to get 75% abbreviated, even if you do get the points. And the points can be limited already, considering how weak the fields have gotten and considering the field strength, because the players have all dropped so far. You might as well go for that 72 holes worth of points. I don't think that's why they did it, but I do think overall, if you're going to get for the points, you might as well go for as many as you can.
We're joined by Matt Vincenzi, senior writer for LIV Golf. And so one of the other changes this past week is LIV's going to increase pathways for 2026 with additional qualifying spots through the LIV Golf promotions and the International Series. So 4 new players can now get through LIV on promotion. Why is this move important for LIV?
Well, back to our last point about the pathways of players getting into the field. That was one of the bigger OWGR hangups. And I think now that you have 4 spots available, as opposed to 2 from last year, and maybe even 1, because the finisher on the International Series Order of Merit, if it was a LIV player, it did not get passed to the next player. That's also changed. So you're guaranteed 4 new players in the league, and not to mention you had 6 players or so relegated. So there's going to be a turnover of at least 10 or so players in the league, which out of 54, 10, I mean, you're overturning a good percentage of that field, which is great for OWGR. It's great for competition. It's great for players to realize that they have a path into LIV if that's what they want to go after. I think overall, it's just a good thing for the league.
No doubt. And so, how's that going to work with where those players are placed on a team? Is it going to be a draft, or is it like NFL where the last place team gets first pick of the new guy? Any idea where those players are going to get placed?
Yeah, I think I think without saying too much, the teams that have players leaving that need to replace those players, I think it was really important to the captains and to the GMs and to the league that those teams had control over the players that they replace the relegated players with. So I don't think it's going to be a situation where they'll be forced to take any players they don't want to take or they didn't choose to take, right? Because we're asking these GMs and teams to build their own rosters like a regular franchise for any other sport, and therefore you can't just give them players. So I think the teams are in charge of recruiting for their own players, and these 4 players coming in are guaranteed a spot. But I think if a team really wanted them and they chose to sign them, that's one thing. But other than that, I imagine they're going to be wild cards.
So we're joined by Matt Vincenzi, senior writer for LIV Golf. And so, does it feel like the golf war is heating up again? LIV's gaining momentum certainly over the past couple of weeks, and now the PGA Tour comes out saying, "Well, we're going to ban all our players if they want to show up to this qualifying event in Florida." Is that the sense maybe from the LIV camp that these guys are trying to battle again? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Live Camp, and I know Scott O'Neill is really open to being part of the golf ecosystem, and fitting in. It's no one on the Live side, from my perspective, wants it to be us versus them. And I think the move where the PGA Tour or a spokesman announced that the players who play in the promotions event are going to be suspended, from the PGA Tour, I think it was a little surprising. I don't think just by personal opinion, makes them look all that great. That's kind of petty. And I get it if you're a current member and you don't allow them to play, you don't grant them release. I understand that, and I think that's fine. But players who have never stepped foot on the PGA Tour, have never had a PGA Tour card, you know, have never played in a Corn Ferry Tour event. Those players, banning them preemptively seems like a really petty move, and I just don't understand the purpose of that. This is supposed to be, players are supposed to have a chance to make a name for themselves, make a career, and they haven't done that yet in the PGA Tour. Give them a chance without having to make a decision before their career even begins.
No doubt. My ex-wife thinks that's a petty move, and she's the queen of petty, Matt. So, so John Rahm recently made the decision to not continue playing on the DP Tour for the remainder of the season, and he's not pursuing the race to Dubai instead of opting for several months off. Any info from Rahm's camp? The reasonings behind this?
Um, no info, but I do think for him, he's trying to figure out what schedule works best for him. And I think a lot of players when they came over, obviously, Liv has a lot of positives, but there's also for some guys, they're trying to balance their game and staying sharp with taking more time off in the off season. more time between events for the most part. So I do think there's going to be a little bit of trial and error for these players. Hey, I tried this last year. I tried playing at this time of year and ramping up for this event. How can we change our schedules to make it work better, to peak at the right time? Because that's all these top players in the world they're trying to do. They're trying to peak at the right time to win major championships. And the great thing about LIV is LIV knows that, and they're working with these players. And they take feedback from the players about the schedule, about the order of events, where they want to go at certain times of the year, as best as they can. Obviously, sometimes it doesn't work out that way. But so I think what Ram is doing is he's trying to find his perfect rhythm to where he can peak at the right time for the bulk of the season where the majors are being played and to win live golf events. So last year he played I think he only played one event in that time span last year. So he wants to have an off season. He deserves to have an off season, and I think it'll probably work out well for him.
No doubt. We're joined by Matt Vincenzi, senior writer for Live Golf. Next 12 months going to be critical for Live with several big name players dealing with expiring contracts, including Bryson DeChambeau, a couple others. What do you know about who's already re-signed with Live from their original deal? Is there anyone that you know about that's already re-upped?
I don't know. I don't. I saw it was reported that Dustin Johnson did. Although internally we have never received that memo. I think at this point negotiations are pretty um, private because I think that the nature of these live golf deals, and more so externally than internally, but I think the teams really want to negotiate in privacy because of how easily players can get spooked when they hear their name and rumors, and all of a sudden, the agents are making statements, and I think they just want to keep it as quiet as possible, which I understand. I don't know who's resigned and not resigned. Um, I would be surprised if Bryson and these guys didn't come back. I think they're pretty committed to live, and they've said so on numerous occasions. But in terms of the specifics, I don't know.
Yeah, I'd bet my left arm Bryson's back. I mean, just when you see his YouTube stuff, because if he goes back to the PGA Tour, that's gone. And,
Yeah.
all his creator stuff. So I just can't see him walking away from that. And so, that's one guy I'm not worried about that we won't see on Live in 2026. And so walk us through your typical week during the Live golf season. How do you guys travel? Are you like an independent contractor, or maybe do you travel as part of with the broadcast crew, anything like that? And, when you get on site, how are you communicating with the players before each event?
Yeah, so we all travel for the most part separately. We're all coming from different places. So I'll book a flight. I'll usually get there on Monday. Monday is usually relatively low key travel day. And then Tuesday morning, I'm at the course. Usually have press conferences early on Tuesday. And then during that time, I'm looking to write some like narrative stories about the week and the tournament. So, identifying what those might be and then setting up a time to get with those players and write a little, either one or two stories leading up to the tournament, maybe three. And then a couple of like quick hitters pieces based on the press conferences, what a player might say, make a story on that. So that's kind of the 4 days leading up to the tournament. Next year we'll have one less day, which I don't mind because sometimes you're trying to really find good stuff to write about into the tournament starts. And then when tournament starts, in the morning you're there early. I like walking out and watching guys on the range and the putting. I think that's the best way to kind of experience the event. Going walking amongst the crowd and kind of feeling the vibes and all that stuff is one of my favorite parts. Talking to the fans, and then when the golf starts, kind of just monitoring. I'll tweet from the Live Golf data account and just taking notes. And then when the tournament ends, immediate recap that I write that I'm responsible for writing the second the tournament ends. The putt drops, boom, it's out there, and then I'll have to run out and chase guys. The difficulty with Live is the shotgun start, so you don't know where any player is going to be. So if you want a quote from a player, you might have to run to the seventh hole to get it. So I'm kind of going all over the place trying to get a couple quotes and then making it back for the press conference for the players they bring into the media center.
Well, I want to thank you for writing those post round quotes because I do use them. I copy and paste some of it because I record my show usually Sunday nights and then one segment Monday. So someone out there is using what you write. So much appreciated.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good.
So, mentioned something. One of the things I loved about Live Golf is, they don't play in Jackson, Mississippi and Blaine, Minnesota. Some of the exotic locations all over the world. Some of your favorite spots this past year traveling with Live.
So I joined halfway through the year, so I didn't get to go too many exotic places, which I'm both looking forward to, and I'm also a little anxious about because I've never really traveled to many places in the world. Actually, I mean, when I first joined Live, my first two other countries that I'd been to like Mexico, but I'd never been to UK or Spain. So those are the two places that I went that were cool. Spain, Valderrama, just a really cool experience. Just the place is amazing. You can just feel, the history and the big events and the Ryder Cup, and they're so prideful of that when you're there, and you can really feel it. The players love it. Just a beautiful property. I loved it. I loved Valderrama. But then the JCB event was really cool. The vibes on the ground were great. The fans were like, much more engaged. I would say UK compared to Spain. The UK fans are really, really good. But I'm sure that's going to be nothing compared to Adelaide and then South Africa. Those are ones that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that. Any specific, well, for those that don't know, Liv will be heading to South Africa next year. Any plans to maybe linger a little longer with the family or anything? Safari, something like that?
I don't think they can make that voyage yet. I don't think they're ready. But and I think it might be a back to back, or I don't know. And that's another thing people always ask if I ever get a chance to play the courses. And I think they let it's like an AM on Monday if you want to stay in, but usually you're 3 weeks on the road, and the next day comes, you got to get out of there. It's like a 16-hour flight ahead of you, and so that's kind of one of the drawbacks to that. But yeah, no plans to linger, but I'm excited to see. Last year I kind of was so new and getting used to everything that I didn't really feel like I soaked in the places that I was visiting. Whereas next year I want to really, take the opportunity to go out and see some things. And once I'm less overwhelmed and feeling more comfortable to be able to actually like experience these places we're going to.
Yeah, I worked in the music business for 20 years, and so I've been on tour with Grammy-winning bands, and that was always important to me. I can't count how many singers and rock stars I've been with that don't leave the hotels. They go to that city, and then that's it. I always wanted to kind of absorb some of the culture, and so I think you need some stories to tell when you're done, you know?
Yeah, last year I was one of those musicians who didn't leave the hotel. So, but next year I'm going to try to change that.
Awesome. So joined by Matt Vincenzi, senior writer for Live Golf. So Paul McGinley, former pro, now broadcaster in Europe, and he's been one of the biggest detractors and naysayers about Live. But he recently made some comments saying, "quote Live Golf is a legitimate threat. Just look at Tom McKibben." Unquote. First, what'd you make of McGinley's comments, and then tell us about Tom McKibben as a person. It's a guy I've been tracking, huge fan of.
Yeah, I love McKibben. I had some friends come out to the Chicago event, and they didn't know who McKibben was. They're just casual golf fans. And I was like, "You guys don't know Tom McKibben?" They're like, "No." And I was like, "Keep an eye on him. He's going to be very, very good. Trust me." And the fact that, and McGinley makes a great point because McKibben took this path, got a little bit of guaranteed money, made more money this year than he would have on the PGA Tour. And then now these national opens that are allowing spots into major championships, Tom McGibben's a really good player. And I'm not saying the field isn't great, but I mean, that's a tournament he can go out there and win, and he did do that, and he did it in dominant fashion. And now he's in two of the majors. Everyone said, "How are you going to get in majors? How are you going to get in majors?" Well, his first live off season, now he's in two majors. So I think all those drawbacks that people pointed to about it not working out and why he's making a huge mistake. I saw an article, someone writing how he made a huge mistake. Well, now he has more money, he has a longer off season. He's with a team. He's learning from John Rahm, and everyone says that part is BS. I've interviewed him a bunch of times for stories, him and Caleb Surratt, and both of them have said, without me asking, out of nowhere, learning from Hatton and Rahm and being with them every day and playing practice rounds with them every day. How many young players on tour, if you're a PGA Tour rookie, do you get to go and play with Rory and Scheffler in a practice round 4 days a week? Absolutely not. And these guys are the captains, and the older players are embracing it, and they're giving these players advice. And Thomas said himself he would not be the player. He would not have progressed to where he is right now if it weren't for being around Hatton and Rahm. So I just think it's an incredible story all around.
Yeah, and that's an amazing point. I think that's one thing that people don't understand when they're around the PG Tour. Those young guys on tour, it's like you're an afterthought. I mean, you might get a nod from a guy like Rory, but until you do anything of significance, they're not going to approach you or shake your hand or even give you a tip. That's gonna take 18 months, 2, 3 years to build that. And Tom and Caleb walk right into that, like, and have it on. And then Rom and Terrell are actively giving them information. I mean, it's just
Mhm.
priceless. That.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. It's incredible, and just the mentor role that Rahm has taken, I think, has been great. And just even like after every round, they're going to the press conference as a 21, 22-year-old, and instead of going up there by yourself, you look to the left and the right of you, and there's John Rahm and Tyrrell Hatton there, and all of a sudden you're feeling a lot more comfortable and more at ease. And then I'm sure it's the same exact way on the golf course. And not to mention, you even see these guys like before the round, hours before the round, they're out there on the chipping green together. Most of these teams practice together. Some teams are more close knit than others, but those guys especially are always practicing together, always playing together, always soaking up as much information as they can, and that's why I think McGibbon's going to be great.
You stole my thunder there on the next one about the team dynamic, so that's good to know. But so if Netflix made a series about one team on Live Golf, who would you suggest they pick?
Oh, that's a great question. I think the most entertaining would probably be Ripper. They're the
The
most,
Aussies, yeah, yeah.
yeah, they're the closest team. Like I'm pretty sure they do everything together. Dinner, after practice, before practice, they're really close knit. And I've developed a good relationship with Nick Pugh, Lucas Herbert's caddy, and he always just raves about the team, not just the team, but the whole team, the caddies, the coaches, the social media people. Everyone is just together, and it's almost like I think that's what's great too about Live is just the developing these national type teams that are, you have all the people in Australia love the Ripper team. When people say, "Oh, who's watching Live?" Well, there's a whole country that's rooting for one team of four players that they absolutely love and they're crazy about. Um, and I mean, I think that's an incredible thing. So I think a Ripper documentary would be awesome. Um, I mean, Crushers would be good. They're very close knit as well, and they're more of an eclectic group. But Bryson is he's been a great leader, and I think the guys really rally around him and they want him to succeed. And I think that's gone a long way of kind of changing the narrative on him. He's done that most of that work by himself, but also just how he gets along with his teammates and how he interacts with them is great. Um, I think Fireballs is another scenario of Sergio and these young players. I mean, you got Ballister now, who's going to be a great player. You got Puig, who's still only 23 years old. So he's taking these young players under his wing, and he's kind of entering that. I said he's entering his Ollie era, where he's going to be this veteran taking these young players like he did with Rom and Sergio under his wing. So I think that would be an incredible documentary as well.
So we're joined by Matt Vincenzi, senior writer for Live Golf. Coming up, last couple minutes here, Matt. I'm so thankful for your time. And so you mentioned Scott O'Neill earlier, the CEO of Live Golf. What kind of leader is he?
Well, he's a great leader. And people will think I'm kind of blowing smoke, but I promise you, I'm speaking from the heart here. So one thing that he's done is he's given every Live employee, especially ones that cover the golf like us, a chance to sit and talk with him and ask him questions. He's been incredibly accessible to us, which I think is, one of the greatest signs of leadership is you're talking to the people who are working for the company, and gives you the opportunity to ask whatever we wanted and just have an open-ended conversation about the direction of Live. And while I can't say too much about that, I will say I'm incredibly confident as a golf person, right? You have people in the Live who are marketing people and social people. Like, as a person who covers golf and who's lives and dies for this, I so much believe in the direction he's taking Live and the steps that he's making, that I have, maybe when I joined, there was a tiny piece of me that thought, oh, I really hope this works out. But now I'm reassured in my belief in Live because of Scott. And he's just resonated with me. Everything that he said, everything that he's done. I think he's going after these OWGR points, which is the right thing to do for the players and for the league. I think he's developing relationships with Trevor Immelman and Ridley and all the powers that be that he needs to develop relationships with is a big part of the job, and he's doing that as well. So I'm really happy with how it's gone so far in his tenure.
Yeah, I was a little hesitant at first because I was such a huge fan of Greg Norman, and I love
Mhm.
the courage and ingenuity it took for him to get Live off the ground. And then when Scott came in, I was like, oh, really? They're doing that? But he's won me over 10,000%. And so, yeah, and even just kind of watching him moving when I was on site at Live Michigan, just watching him interact with people, I'm like, that's a real CEO.
Yes.
And I kind of really he's definitely growing on me. So last question here, and again, thankful for your time. And so I'm a Canadian, and so I understand the international success is sometimes we don't really need the Americans. We're going through that right now politically in Canada, where there's whole tariff war and stuff like that. But how important is American success for Live Golf? We've seen success in Australia, Spain, and South Africa already sold out for next year. Do you think they even need American relevance to be successful?
No, I don't. I don't at all. I think it's nice to have, and then the five American events. It's great to get. They've sold out a lot, and towards the end of last year, there's a lot of momentum. Is that ever going to translate to 4 million viewers on a weekend like the PGA Tour? No, probably not. I don't think that's realistic to think. The PGA Tour has been around for decades and decades and decades, and they've established themselves as the American tour. And I think Live and the leadership at Live is okay with that. I think that's why Scott is trying to blend in with the golf ecosystem, because now you have an American tour and you have a world tour. And the world tour will take a couple stops in America, which is great, and players get and fans can get a chance to see some of the favorite players like Bryson and Rahm and Neiman and Cam Smith. And then the other 9 weeks, they're traveling to all these different places in the world, and you know And I think that's okay. I think it's okay to have a world tour, and Live is growing and improving, and the roster's expanding, and all these good things are happening. And that's okay if that happens in the context of global golf rather than America.
Well, let's hope Canada's in the mix at some point. I had the president of Golf Canada on last week, and so they're pretty in bed with the PGA Tour. It might take some work, but hopefully, eventually, we'll get you guys up there. So, Matt, I mean, thanks so much for your time. Anything you want to squeeze in? Anything you want to plug before we let you go?
No, I think just to the fans to be patient. I think I think people love the big splashy offseason additions and stuff, but I think at this point, I think Live should be focused on growing depth within the league and expanding that depth and making the players from 35 to 52 stronger. And I think that's what you're going to see most of this off. Just my personal opinion. It doesn't mean there's no chance of a huge signing, but I think strengthening that middle of the pack in upper 20 to 50 in that range and getting good solid players to heighten the depth of the league, I think is really important this offseason.
Awesome. Well, Matt, can't thank you enough, and hopefully we can do it again soon.
All right, thanks for having me.